thing on a transfer is that you have to knowingly circumvent the law. In other words, you have to be a black market dealer, or otherwise you're not going to be criminalized for it. That transfer issue is put in there to affect this individual to gun show. So gun shows are private sales. You can sell a couple of guns, but you had black market dealers that were selling 50 AK-47s a session against the law. Those people should have been, by definition, federally licensed firearm dealers. So it's designed at some point to prevent the bad guys from doing it. It's not a gotcha. Nobody wants gotcha for the average everyday citizen put in jail, and it will not happen that way because we have precedent in California and Oregon.
Well, it should be okay. Let me tell you a little bit about the precedent in California for a second. In California, there are 30,000 mentally ill people who have guns. They have a grand total of 33 people, really, in the state of California who are tasked with taking these 30,000 guns away from these 30,000 mentally ill people. Okay, we're creating a system that is either not going to be enforced or it's going to be over-enforced. This idea, if we can just trust the government, then why aren't we just trusting the government to do the right thing now? I don't understand why a piece of legislation makes them better at what they do. I mean, the government is not very good at what they're doing now. Why does new wording make them not suck?
Because part of the reason you have a law or initiative as a deterrent, that government won't even be involved, that the bad guys won't be going to gun shows to buy guns, so they have to circumvent it.
Well, but that's exactly the point. If bad guys are not going to gun shows with regard to Ebola, and for a second, this is a mild digression. With regard to Ebola, the federal government just made the case that they don't want a federal travel ban, right? Because they said if there's a federal travel ban, people will just find a way to circumvent the federal travel ban. Okay, do you see the analogy here?
Yeah, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm here to talk about guns. And most people are law-abiding citizens on that. So, I think one of the reasons you have laws is a deterrent to make sure that people do the right thing.
Well, I agree, but this is the attendant cost, right? If there are law-abiding, the cost is a law-abiding citizen, for example, under the bill, who wants to loan a gun to a family member for purposes of defending themselves. The bill talks about it has to be in the case only of the most basically emergency situations. Well, how does the government define that? It's undefined in the bill. Right? I mean, so I have a cousin or I have a sister-in-law who feels endangered by her husband. If I give her the gun and she says, I feel endangered, and she keeps it for a week, but the government only decides that she was endangered for 3 days, and the gun is stolen and used, then she can be prosecuted, I can be prosecuted, as well as the criminal.
And you'll never be prosecuted. It's never happened.
So again, it comes down to faith in government.
You'll never be prosecuted. There's precedent here. You'll never be prosecuted. Use your best judgment and don't knowingly break the law.
Then why don't we just pass a referendum that says, please, prosecutors, do good stuff?
Let me do a follow-up.
All right, the left marches on with its plan to take away your Second Amendment rights, and unfortunately, they are one step closer. Earlier today, the Senate Judiciary Committee passed a controversial ban on assault weapons, and not surprisingly, the measure passed along party lines, and the discussion about the ban got very heated at times. Now, it even erupted into a fierce exchange between Texas Senator Ted Cruz and the bill's sponsor, California Senator Dianne Feinstein. Now, watch what happened when Cruz challenged the constitutionality of the ban.
Would she think that the Fourth Amendment's protection against searches and seizures could properly apply only to the following specified individuals and not to the individuals that Congress has deemed outside the protection of the Bill of Rights?
I'm not a sixth grader. Senator, I've been on this committee for 20 years. It's fine you want to lecture me on the Constitution. I appreciate it. Just know I've been here for a long time. I've passed on a number of bills. I've studied the Constitution myself. I am reasonably well educated, and I thank you for the lecture. Incidentally, this does not prohibit, you use the word prohibit, it exempts 2,271 weapons. Isn't that enough for the people in the United States?
Nobody doubts her sincerity or her passion. And yet, at the same time, I would note that she chose not to answer the question that I asked, which is, in her judgment, would it be consistent with the Constitution for Congress to specify which books are permitted and which books are not, and to use the specific number?
The answer is obvious, no.
All right, joining me now, someone who has been very outspoken about the left's gun grab, author, columnist, Coulter. How are you?
Fine.
You don't even need to say Ann. Everybody knows who you are. I felt like I was listening to Cruz. I felt like I was listening to a Supreme Court argument because he's talking about, all right, well, the First Amendment, does that mean that you're going to ban some books, not other books? How do you justify it? The Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. I thought he made a really good case, and she got pissed.
Yeah, he asked some very important questions, and Dianne Feinstein, like her other I am woman, hear me roar, Democratic female, Hillary Clinton, as soon as they get a question they don't like, they start crying. Oh, that's fantastic. I would like to see how that would go over in a law school class when a professor asks you to distinguish cases. I have been very educated, and I'm offended by that question. I spend half my life
near the Constitution.
On college campuses with co-eds at the mic crying to me and stamping their feet and telling me they're offended. It's going to be harder for me to tell them now that's not an answer, now that U.S. senators are using that as an answer. And what Dianne Feinstein eventually got to answering was preposterous. She said he raised the First Amendment. And she said, well, we ban child pornography. The very answer proves the absurdity of what is happening. The First Amendment protects speech. It does not protect photographs. It certainly does not protect photographs of genitals. If we interpreted the Second Amendment, which protects arms, the way we interpreted the First Amendment, you would have a right to your own personal nuclear weapon. That's how extreme it is. And I would add that, in fact, the First Amendment does protect virtual child pornography. It certainly protects writing about child pornography. And for her to say, well, don't worry, we're not banning these other guns. Well, okay, how about we just ban the New York Times? Because we still have the Daily News and the New York Post.
Good point. And that's what Cruz was getting to, about the First Amendment side of his argument, which was, I thought, very, very pertinent and clever and appropriate.
He nailed her, so she said, I'm offended.
Yeah, I'm offended. All right. So
I used to think women just shouldn't be able to vote. Now I think at least liberal women should not be able to hold office. And by woman, I do not mean to limit that to the biological sense. That is not an answer. All right. I'm offended. All
right. First of all, you know what frustrates me? Nobody knows about these weapons. I have been trained in the use of firearms since I am 11. I know I've shot most of them. And the point is, you know, Joe Biden is lecturing, well, just fire a shotgun through a door, not knowing what's on the other side, which is stupid. Secondly, a lot of shotguns have a big kickback that would probably send you flying right on your backside. Now, an AR-15 would not do that.
Right. No, you need different guns for different things. But, I mean, you remind me of this. I keep hearing them say, we deserve to at least have a discussion. We want to have a discussion. Every time you try to have a discussion with them, they become hysterical, they cry, and they want to show pictures of dead children as if our position is, oh, we don't mind a few dead children. No, our position is concealed carry would have stopped these slaughters, and we have the statistics and the studies to back it up. Something else I saw you talking about last night on TV that I think is very important to clarify. This nonsense idea by people who do know absolutely nothing about guns and nothing about criminology that a gun in the home is more likely to be used against the occupant. Okay, point one, and I have been through some of this before, that is 100% suicides. And there is no higher rate of suicide than with a gun or without a gun. People use poison or a million other things. But the idea that a criminal would be wrestling a gun away from the homeowner is preposterous. That happens even in attempts where the homeowner gets shot by the home invader. It happens in less than 1% of the cases. They have done extensive interviews with prisoners. They say they do not go into homes they think could have a gun. They will not mug someone they think will have a gun. If they see a homeowner with a gun, they run. It is only in Hollywood movies that the criminal sees the gun and wrestles you for it. There are plenty of other houses to break into and rape women in.
All right, you're going to CPAC.
Yes, I am.
All right, we're going to show highlights in a little bit. We got Rubio, you got Rand Paul, you got Ted Cruz, who we just saw, you got Mike Lee. We got a new and of course you are rock star.
Wow.
You're going to bring the house down.
That's the big highlights.
That's listen.
So get ready to replay that on Monday.
All right. So, but the point is, we've got an emerging, energetic, we got new blood. I'm energized by them. I think this is really helping the party, and the media hates all of them. So, I mean, that's a good sign. That means they're doing their job.
Whereas I only hate about a third of them. None of the ones you mentioned. I'm speaking right before Cruz, who is the big finale speaker on Saturday.
Yeah. You get to introduce them?
No, I'm not very good at introductions. I'm much better at making fun of liberals.
Yeah, no, by the way, if you haven't seen Ann speak, you are funny.
Thank you.
Oh, good. You do great. Good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you.
And still.
Why on earth would you want more guns in schools after what's happened today?
Here's why, Piers. If we could suddenly make all guns disappear, I'd have a different position. but I spend a lot of time thinking about this and reading about it. I teach a class at the law school level called Gun Control Seminar, and I get a new group of law students every term, and we discuss this in detail. And the simple facts are guns exist. They are essentially 1800s technology. Even semi-automatics came into being in the late 1800s. They're easy to make. They're not going anywhere. They last several human lifetimes with minimal maintenance. So since guns exist, and we know for a fact that the only way to stop an evil person, like the person you were discussing earlier in the show, is to shoot him, or he's going to shoot himself.
Hang on. This is exactly the argument that I've been hearing ever since I've joined CNN. I joined on air about a week after Gabby Giffords, a congresswoman, was shot in the head. Right, ever since then, we've had the Sikh temple, the Aurora incident. We had the shopping mall last week. Guy downstairs shot in the head from our New York bureau, and so on and so on and so on. And the argument I keep hearing is, well, if everybody else was armed, it wouldn't happen. It's a load of total hogwash, isn't it? No. If everyone had been armed at that movie theatre, twice as many people would have been killed in the mayhem that erupted.
Give an example where people have stopped these attacks and a bystander's been hit. You can't give me one example where a bystander's been hit by a permit holder.
The Empire State Building.
Where a permit holder.
Can I just...
The proof of the pudding
you don't
is that in every other industrialized country in the world,
gun shows
other than the United States,
ranges,
they have reasonable gun control laws, and they have 100 people a year, not 9,000 or 10,000 a year killed by guns.
Guys, listen,
Japan,
but it was lower before gun control there.
Japan adopted strong gun control laws.
And has almost zero crime.
And the homicide rate plummeted.
But the point is, the gun control didn't change it.
In Scotland, in Dunblane, in 1996, there's a very similar school shooting.
Right.
Just an awful situation. 16 young children killed exactly as they were today.
You know what, the two of the
and they, as a result of this, they brought in a handgun ban. 162,000 handguns were handed in. Right? It is time for an amnesty.
Murder rates went
in
up.
America.
Listen.
There's an amnesty in Australia as well.
Murder rates went up.
There are about 35 murders a year in Britain.
But it was
35.
lower for another reason.
There are nearly 12,000 murders a year from guns in this country.
The point is,
when are you guys going to focus on that? And stop telling me the answer is more guns.
No,
it is not the answer.
Look, listen.
Let's
focus on
than it was after the ban. It was higher than it was before the ban.
So you want more guns, not less?
I'm saying
300 million guns in America isn't enough for you.
When you ban guns,
how many more kids have to die before you guys say, we want less guns, not more?
I'm upset about this. He asked me a question.
I want to tell you
something.
Let
him answer the question.
I'm upset because I worry that the gun control laws that you're pushing have killed people.
Oh,
that
what
when
a
you
lot of nonsense.
Look, you have to explain.
Nonsense.
You
An
have
average of 35 killings from guns in Britain a year.
No,
in a place that banned handguns.
But
Here,
it was lower
no ban
before
on these
they
guns.
had the gun control
12,000
laws.
people a year die from gun murders.
Look, there are lots of differences across countries. You have to
Can I please have the opportunity to say something without screaming? I mean,
yeah, there is. I'm sorry, but
no, I want the. I just
today.
need to.
I've been debating this all week. Following the Bob Costas thing, the shopping mall and so on, following Aurora. I've been debating it for months, if not 2 years. I'm so frustrated. I'm so furious that these kids have been blown away again with legally acquired weapons. Some boy who's got problems takes his mother's 3 weapons, including this ridiculous assault rifle, and goes into school and kills his kids. And you guys on the gun lobby still want to tell me the answer is more guns.
Look,